let's go ahead and introduce our spectacular gentleman who's joining us tonight, Mr. Tom Booker.
You guys are so nice.
Oh, well, Tom,
And
we
such
miss
good
you
liars.
here. We miss you here in Austin. And why did you move to Nashville?
My partner Janet got a job as she's a minister. Is that Asaf Ronan? Hello, Asaf. She is a minister at she was ordained in 1986, and then she was a chaplain at the hospitals, and she worked was the chaplain for Austin Hospice for about 20 years, and then she was running some nonprofits, and she decided she wanted to finish out her working years as a senior pastor, and so she was an interim minister at Central Christian Church down in downtown Austin, where what's his name, Lady Bird Johnson, and I want to say Artie Johnson, but that's the wrong president. And then somehow a church in East Nashville found out about her, and so we live in East Nashville, which we're told is the coolest part of Nashville.
Oh, of course.
I have to agree with that. And so I'm a minister's wife now, and this right here, I'm coming to you from a parsonage right next to Eastwood Christian Church in East Nashville, Tennessee. I'm just a humble preacher's wife from Nashville, Tennessee.
I love it. I love it.
The past couple of years, my life has been, didn't see that one coming.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Exactly what's going on.
So tell us, what are you doing nowadays? What are you up to?
I really haven't been since the pandemic. I had to shut down the Institution Theater in March of 2020, and then I was still teaching classes online, and I've done that until recently. And then we have just sheltered in place a lot, and so I am just now starting to do things in the East Nashville. One of the things that I used to do is Janet and I have a duo called Texas Gothic. And since we're no longer in Texas, I'm lobbying, and now it's called Texas Gothic Presents the Ma and Pa Show. Basically, it was the Texas version of the American Gothic painting, and it's very Burns and Allen. And so we're going to start doing shows here. And I did just an improv workshop to see who would be interested in. We got about 10 people, and then one of the a couple of people from the workshop grabbed me later. We met up for a cup of coffee, and they said we want to do something. And so starting on the 24th, we're going to be meeting at the at Fellowship Hall at Eastwood Christian Church, which is right next door. And we are just going to start working on something. I don't know what that is, but I can tell you that I have the domain name eastnashvilleplayers.com. So that's Nashville is great. Wonderful.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So that's what I've been working on, and working on a podcast with Stephanie Chiarello. I've been doing the technical stuff with. She runs Over the Ledge, which is going to be at the Long Center in September. I'll be coming to town for that, and that's about it.
Great. Yeah. Gary, did you have some questions you wanted to ask Tom?
Yeah, Tom. Tell us a little bit about what makes you feel humor, what affected you, how you teach it, and how you keep yourself inspired and actually use it in practical life, much less in acting, as Don Eastwood.
Well, I think it's just I think it's from having a long time of trying it the other way, and it didn't work. And you know, and I know it sounds Pollyanna, and for a long while I had a podcast called the Good Morning I Love You show. But I just found that when I try and I feel better when I try and make other people feel better. And as far as humor, and this is a little something that I learned from Asaf Ronan. Asaf, I wish you'd put your camera on, because I want you to share. you know, we laugh when we're surprised, and also when we're in the moment, and that's when we surprise each other, and not only each other, ourselves. And it's just about being in the moment, trusting in the process, and you know, committing to it being good no matter what. I mean, one of the things, you know, the pandemic sucked. Right before that, I got diagnosed with MS. That kind of sucked. But rather than woe is me, I try and focus on what does this make possible. For one, I now have a super sexy limp.
Tootie has just asked me to remind everybody to turn their video on so that we can know who's here, so we can see who's here in the room. And Tom, one of the things that I've experienced as a casting director is the importance of improv and being able to ad lib, because so many times I'm casting something that has no script. And so people actually have to talk to the director or have to talk with the people in the room. And so can you highlight the importance of ad-libbing or being able to improv, especially under fire?
Sure. I mean, I think it's not so much that they can improvise. I think it's that, well, they can improvise because they trust themselves.
Right.
And they also trust the other players. And that is a muscle like anything else. And so that's why I do think taking improv classes is important, in that you get up there and you can learn to trust yourself. And it's weird. A couple of the art forms of improv and stand-up, there's no barrier to entry. So that means anyone can show up and do it, which is good and bad. But I mean, it's all good. But it's one of those things that you are going to suck at for a while before you get good at it. And there's just no way. Like, you can't read a book about stand-up and all of a sudden be good at it. You have to experience and find out what works for you. Same with improv. You know, you have to for lack of a better word, learn how to use your instrument. You know,
Right.
what with your acting business that you carry around with you everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's just, you need to go someplace where a comfortable space to fail, so you can learn to trust. And the person you need to trust most when you're improvising is you. And also, I think a lot of times, Danisha, it's so good to see you. I haven't seen you forever.
I know.
When they're improvising in auditions, and I'd love to hear what you have to say with it, because I think you're going to, is they try and run the whole show instead of just doing their part. And they try and land it in such a way that they know how it's going to end, rather than focusing on being in the moment and just letting that energy. I think there's something magical about improv, really. I mean, seeing improv and being part of something that has never existed before and will never exist again. There's something, as I get older, you get crazier. And I guess probably more like a hippie. I definitely can tell you that Austin made me think this way. Is I think when people are tuned into each other, there's a vibration of some sort. There's something almost, I would call it magical in a way, that there's just a frequency that everybody's on, and just watching and listening and enjoying. And when we're tuned in like that, all our problems go away for a moment.
Well, I really love your answer, and I always encourage my students to take improv classes, because I want them to realize that you can't do anything well until you failed at it. And once you failed, you can learn from that. I never learned anything from doing it right. I've always learned everything from doing it wrong. And I think improv is so important because it shows not only the personality, but the ability to think on your feet and the ability to respond. And you're so right, because so many people try to take over the entire situation instead of actually listening to what the director is asking about and then responding. So I totally agree with you. It's very important. And I want people to get training for that, because you can't just walk in the room and do it.
Well, as luck would have it, one of the best teachers I know is down here in my bottom left, and that's Mr. Soph Ronan, who he wanted to come with me to East Nashville, but I said, no, stop. It's time for us to go on our own. And I hear he's doing some good stuff there back in that little cow town in Texas.
Asaph, are
You're
you
not
still
going to give me anything, are you?
are you still teaching? Do you currently teach?
I haven't. I'm not doing anything official. I actually there's one theater here, one improv theater called Third Coast, and
Wait a minute, that's Texas, isn't it?
I
Oops.
oh, by the way, the motto of the East Nashville Players is "Make Nashville Weird." It's not weird. Everybody's
Quit
very
stealing
nice.
all of our good lines, Tom.
No, it's not keep. It's make. And there's room. There's room for weirdness. Just ask Janet. But I even offered. It's weird. I mean, I think I always appreciated the acting and improv community in Austin, but I really appreciate it now that I've been somewhere else for a while.
Right.
It's really special in the support, I think. Here, it seems to me, it's been my experience that it's a little more closed off, which is, fine. That's the way it is. But I've got to, so and it might be time for me to do something else, but I don't know what that is yet. But Janet and I enjoy performing together. And when we perform together or work on stuff creatively, it also, I think we have a pretty good relationship, but it really helps our relationship when we,
Good.
there's a difference. It makes it what's really good, really, really good. And so that's important.
Tom, is Asaph teaching currently improv classes?
Asaph, I think, well, yes. Can you turn on your mic, Asaph, or you not want to talk?
Yeah, right now I'm the education director over at Cold Town Theater, and I'm teaching classes through Cold Town Theater.
Oh, that's I didn't know that, and I would sure like to receive some information regarding it, because I do have students that need this particular skill, and I don't know where to send them now that Tom's gone.
All right. Well, sure. I'll give you an email that you can direct them to.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah. They're in good hands with the Asaph Ronan.
Hey, Amber, do you have any questions?
Hey, Amber, how are you?
Hi.
It's good
I
to
have
see
questions,
you.
but just good to see you, and glad you're okay, and glad you're, landed in Nashville, and we miss you.
I know this is like one of the, I've gone to almost all of my, I think the most recent one, they had a little party, my class reunions, and like your 10-year reunion, everybody hopes you know what you're doing. Everybody you think you know everything, and then your 20-year reunion, you hope everybody thinks you know everything, and your 30-year reunion, you're like, I don't know a damn thing. How are the grandkids? And that's kind of how we're surviving. We've got, we may not be completely out of the dark, but we're in the gray. How are you doing now? You've been teaching yourself, right, Amber?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
How's that going?
I'm always growing and evolving and learning and, going through the ups and downs of it. But great.
Is there anyone on this thing that does not teach at some sort of workshop, whether it's at the recreation center? And Kathy, I don't know if you can tell, but I'm looking right at you, because one, I know you have experience, and it can be acting, it can be improv, it can be writing. But what's weird is you don't know how much you learn until you start teaching. Also, you don't know how much you know. It's surprising when someone asks you a question and you answer it and you're like, why that came out of my mouth? So gather a group and play with no expectation and teach something, because you're gonna grow. I'm sorry, Amber. I'm sorry, but that's what you've been doing has it been like 5 years you've been teaching?
Oh, more than that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, much more. It's getting close to 25 now.
Where does the time go?
I know, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. But What do you think of Nashville? I mean, you say it's not quite, well, not quite the same as Austin, but tell us about Nashville.
The people are very nice. Very nice. I'll tell you what's nice. My favorite part is we have heat, but you have heat. So it gets hot, but it doesn't get miserable, and it cools off. One of the things
we don't do that.
No, and that's another thing too. Nashville, everybody's very, very polite. I mean, everybody here is polite, but well behaved's not the right term, but not as passionate or enthusiastic as the people of Austin. Does that make
They're
sense?
very genteel.
Yes.
You
I,
know.
like as I was saying, it's like, Donish, oh, you wouldn't like it here.
Actually, I was born in Memphis, so I probably would. Yeah.
So, but I do like it. It was frustrating because we moved during the pandemic, so weren't able to go do a lot. But now we're out, getting out and doing more.
And well, obviously the pandemic affected you greatly because you had to close your theater, and Amber and I have talked about the difficulty in getting our classes together because, well, number one, inflation. Number two, we require COVID cards. And number three, there's just so much going on in the world right now. And it's very frustrating. And I share your frustrations about having to close your theater because I know that hurt because it was very successful.
It did hurt, although it was probably past time.
Yeah.
Because I think that there are now just because I'm a humble preacher's wife from East Nashville, Tennessee. I've just started being churchy, and mainly I'm churchy because I run the sound on Sundays. But I do.
So you have to listen, right?
Well, the sermons are great, and and also the musicians at church are wonderful. And but I think there were a lot of signs that it was time for me to close the theater, but I didn't do it because I didn't know what else to do.
Right.
In hindsight, like most of the things that lead my life have my claw marks on them because and even right before the pandemic, the building, I'd worked out a deal with the newest owners, and then they renovated it. Everybody that's owned the building has been exceptionally nice, and but they needed the building that I had left for the new tenants, but then they also bought the building, and I arranged an extension for 3 months beginning on March 2020, and then I figured I could probably eke another year out, and so I paid the rent for March, and then I paid the rent for April. In April, I contacted them, and the new owners, who are the people that own the Siete grain-free chips. They turned the final building. The plans were to make it a test kitchen, and they were really nice. When the first time I sent them the rent check, I sent it to the wrong address, and I walked it over a week or two late. They were fine, and I left their building with literally 2 grocery sacks full of Siete products. It was wonderful.
You have somebody coming in.
Yeah, here's another new addition to our Nashville family. This is Pearl. She's a half golden retriever, half Great Pyrenees.
Oh my word.
Yeah, she's big.
Yeah.
I wanted a big dog with a big bark.
Well, she loves her daddy, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah, she's wonderful.
Kathy, do you have any questions or any comments to add?
Oh, I studied with Tom for so many years through so many versions of the institution theater.
Yes.
I'm just here because I love him.
Oh, thank you, Kathy. Kathy, I have your nameplate somewhere within reach, but I don't know where it is yet.
I know. I was one of the donors to help build that institution theater. So.
It's around here somewhere, but I can't. Yes.
But thank you for the opportunity, Denise. I've grilled him many a day.
Yeah.
Kathy, I
And
have to ask you though, what are you working on right now? Are you working on a feature script?
Well, I'm still available for acting, but I've turned to screenwriting and playwriting
Mhm.
and have created a couple of both during the pandemic that have a very good pedigrees, and I'm going to be sending them out this year for consideration.
That's
So
great.
I'm a writer.
Yay,
Yay!
yay, good.
a frequent attendant of the Network Austin Mixer, which we totally appreciate. So it's always good to see you, Kathy.
You know, Donise, I would like to add one thing, and that is I've recommended improv classes to my writers group on more than one occasion, because
Sure.
one thing writers have to do is pitch. They got to pitch their story to potential investors and so forth. And everybody's always, oh, I'm so nervous and I don't know what to say once I get past my prepared words. And how do I answer questions? Take an improv class, because if nothing else, it builds confidence when faced with the unknown.
Well, you're talking about an elevator pitch, and then you've got to be able to, got to be on target and on time. Just do me one favor. Please tell everybody to quit using the word like every other word, because that is so distracting and people get so turned off by that when they start using, well, you know, like I was going to go to the store and like, well, it was like it was raining, so I like didn't go.
It's one of those empty fillers.
It's driving me. Well, I prefer
Oh, I was
just-
going to say my big bug is
Yeah, well, I would rather hear
Um,
that than like every other word. It drives me insane. I turn people off, major movie stars being interviewed on TV. I
Wow.
turn them off because I can't keep listening to the word like. And in my classes now, I start doing this. And the people say, what are you
Counter.
doing? And I say, I'm counting the number of likes that you use. And they go, they're horrified when they realize it. And the parents are doing it as much as the children. So I don't know if it's a Valley Girl thing that we.
I was
create-
just going to say, I think that we can blame the Valley Girl phenomenon.
Well, possibly, but oh God. But tell all of your writers who are going to make a pitch to really and truly, I think an improv class would be phenomenal for them.
Yes. And of all people, a writer should be able to choose their words wisely.
Thank you. You would
Kathy,
think that they could.
You were talking about writing, and I forgot something that I have started. That's another part of my, didn't see that one coming. Since July, I've been a script writer for Ramsey Solutions, which is Dave Ramsey's company down in Franklin, which is just south of Nashville, or I'm told it's pronounced Nashville. And I think Asaf can back this up. The fact that I'm writing scripts about personal finance is very strange. Talk about improvising.
Wow. Wow. So that's some straight work, right?
Yeah. Well, my joke is that I'm going to work there until somebody Googles me, because they're a little churchy.
Are there any other questions from any of our other participants tonight? Kimberly, Chris? Any questions or comments? Oh, we've got the strong side. Victoria? No? Oh, gosh, we've got the strong silent type. So
How's
fortunately,
everything happening in Austin? Have things picked up? Or things going?
you know, my personal opinion, and it is really a very personal opinion, is that casting directors are becoming obsolete. And the
Really?
reason is everybody wants everybody to self-tape and submit their tape straight to the client. And I don't like that at all, because I'm not there to help the talent develop a character or change whatever is wrong, or you know, my job is to help them. And I'm not given that opportunity. And at the beginning of April, I was casting 12 children, and it was for a educational video, no dialogue, no script, no nothing. They just wanted to see the kids talk about themselves. So I created a bunch of questions, you know, how old are you, where do you go to school, what's your favorite subject, who's your favorite teacher, blah, blah, blah. And I got 90 submissions, and I watched each one of them before I submitted them to the client. And I was appalled by what I was seeing, because nobody is teaching. I'm now incorporating in my classes, but nobody to my knowledge is teaching how to do self-taping. Amber, do you teach that? You don't? Yeah. Well, I'm incorporating it in my classes now because the tapes are horrible. Camera's too high, camera's too low. They're shooting up somebody's nose or down on somebody's head. The lighting is, I mean, they'll be sitting in front of an open window with the sun glaring through, so they're all in shadow, or in front of the tchotchkes in mom's break front. And nobody's ever told them how to. So I'm having a serious problem with that. And people don't want to learn how. And I sent emails to all those parents saying, I watched your child's tape. I know I can help you improve on how to submit a good tape. And, you know, it was a very thoughtful, long email. And this woman wrote back and said, what does it pay?
Wait, so you were offering a class or workshop, and they wanted to get paid
And she
for
wanted
it?
to know what it paid. And I wrote her back and said, you might want to reread the brochure. You know, that's not what I wanted to say, but that's what I did say. But I'm seeing the self-taping as a horrendous problem for people. Amber, do you ask some of your talent, or do you have some of your talent show you their tapes before they submit them? Do you have time to do that?
No, and I haven't offered that, but I do know about everything you're talking about, and it bothers me too. So
It's costing them jobs.
Yeah.
You know, and I tell all my students, send me your tape and let me take a look at it before you submit it, because either they're not following the casting director's instructions about sit at a table or do a profile or do this or that or the other. And they just don't seem to read if it's more than 30 words. They don't seem to read that. And I don't know how to overcome it. So, you know, any suggestions you have, or Tom or Kathy, any suggestions anybody has, I would love to hear about it, because these people are shooting themselves in the foot.
Have you thought of offering a sorry, Tom, have you
No,
thought
you go,
of-
Amber.
Have you thought of offering a self-tape class?
Yes, I'm
Denise?
including it in every one of my classes now.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
Well, I'm doing it, but that doesn't mean they're listening to it or paying
Yeah.
attention to it. So, Tom, what are your thoughts on this self-taping stuff?
My first thought is to do, what if you were to do like a quick 1 to 2 minute sample reel of good, bad, you know, just and for more information, and then and I'm not talking about using any of the auditions that were sent to you.
No.
You could recreate it, but
Right.
you know, just show how simple it is to make something go from bad to very good. I think maybe a big part of it could be, well, I mean, it's one of those things. When I was started the business of the institution theater, one of the things that I heard that really rang true for me was, first off, you don't know what you don't know, you know, and
Right.
then
Oh
eventually
my
you
God,
know
that
what you
is
don't know,
so true.
and then you don't know what you know, and then you know. And I think that this is probably a big part of, they just don't know what they don't know, and the video that they see is probably on the same level, so they just assume that's universal. So I would suggest making just a brief video and showing not giving away your whole pitch, but just showing what simple things that would be helpful. Like, it's just as simple as, like, don't have the camera like this
That's it.
or like this, you
And
know,
that's what they're doing. That's what
Yeah.
they're doing.
You know, and
so, yeah,
and maybe just
I'm
show
not-
it.
I'm honestly not looking to sell a class.
I know.
I really and truly want to help these people, because what they're submitting is awful. I mean, it's really awful. And that's why I resent the fact that I truly believe that casting directors are becoming completely obsolete. And
But what's
Yeah.
really bad about that too is, I think a lot of times um, uh, the casting directors that I've worked with will often, I would get called in, and there would be a couple, this was back in LA, a couple times I got called in, it was all these big guys and then goofy little me, and they just wanted to show the client another way, possibility. And I was always, I don't think I ever booked anything off that, but I was always honored because it meant a lot if the casting director chose me as the goofy guys. But if you don't have a casting director, you don't have someone with that expertise looking at it like a different way.
I
And
agree.
that's a shame.
I agree. And almost every talent I talk to nowadays has said it's all self-submit. And I think, well, good luck, self-tape, good luck. Now, Kathy, have you run into that? Have you seen a lot of people,
Well,
a lot of your
I-
friends?
I have, I've been doing self-tapes now for about 2 years, well, since the pandemic began, so about 2 years. And I probably did, just half a dozen the first year, but I've done more than a dozen last year.
Yeah.
But I worked out a system. I have a partner now, Lori Coker, and I are both represented by Collier Talent. And
Oh,
we
great.
usually get called in for the same parts. So she comes over to my house and I've set up a little studio upstairs in the loft, and I tape her, and then I've got everything set up, and I'll sit down and have her hit the start button to tape me, and we read for each other. And we've developed some pretty darn good tapes. And
That's great.
I haven't booked anything from it, but I think 2 or 3 of hers actually booked roles for her. And
Wow.
and I'm coaching her and directing her too. So I'm getting a little, I'm doing I'm doing a little cinematography and direction now. I mean, even some funny little camera setups. Like one of the people you were supposed to be playing with was a super tall policeman. So I positioned it so it looked like she was looking up. Another time she's supposed to be in a car with some other people. So I had her kind of turn 3/4 so she
Right.
could look at the other people who were all me. And we've been having a lot of fun with it. That number one, but number two, number two is because we've both been in a lot of films. We know what a film is supposed to look like, and we're making our audition tapes look like these are single shots from a movie. One we even did with a little over the shoulder with me standing in a little bit of the frame. So we're putting our talents as actors and knowledge about filmmaking to use and making our self-tapes. But the third thing is, can I remember the third thing? I'm getting older now.
The third thing always gets us.
I know.
Kathy, the
that-
important thing about what you're saying is that it benefits you as an actor to understand what goes on behind the camera, what an angle is, what a shot is, what a
Right.
close-up. It does nothing but benefit you as an actor. You learn how to the importance of hitting your mark. The editor will love you forever.
Oh, yeah.
You learn how to do all these various things. And not only do you increase your knowledge, but it increases your talent as an
The
actor.
overall utility and value on set. Because I
Yeah.
also worked, when at the state, in fact, Amber Dupuy was one of my first teachers at the State Theater School of Acting when I started.
Yeah.
And there was a fellow named there, you'll remember, Gabriel Foltz, who taught a class on
Oh.
filmmaking. And I took his filmmaking class. And we did everything. We held the boom, we did the lighting, we held the little reflector boards for the highlight and the key light and all these things. An actor shouldn't just memorize some lines and walk in the room and say their lines. They
Right.
got to understand what it is they're creating or helping to create. And if that third thing occurs to me, I'll bring it.
Well, that was my
Figure it
point.
later.
That was my point exactly, that the more you know behind the camera, the more you can be a better actor and understand all of the aspects of the whole thing. So
Oh,
you remembered?
I remembered.
Yay.
I assume because we're getting these auditions through our talent agent, that when we submit them, whether it's Actors Access or Casting Networks, that they are going to the casting director for those film projects. Because I don't know about I don't think she would, because I don't think she can make her own tapes. I don't know about Laurie, but I don't self-submit to, I don't go sitting through Actors Access all day looking for things to submit to. Because my time is precious and I want to make sure it's a project that'll be worthwhile, and I'll rely on my agent to help identify those for me. But I'm assuming my tapes are going to a casting director, not directly to the film's director. Or
Not necessarily.
that's
Sometimes
interesting.
they go straight to the production team, and the production.
I did not know that.
I call them the suits, and that's when the suits make up their mind. And the casting director has very, very little to do with it. I looked at those tapes out of curiosity. They didn't ask me for my opinion
Wow.
because they were making all the decisions. Casting directors don't make the decisions anyway. We might make a decision about, I'm going to edit this person out of the tape because it was a terrible performance, but they don't ask us for our opinion. They don't care. They really enjoy it, don't care.
I'm very sorry to hear that, because one of my favorite roles I got was through Beth Sepko, who called me in as a wild card. It was a role written for a hippie dude at the Chronicle. And
Yeah,
I
but she
came
called you in, so she saw you.
I came in as a cool chick, and I gave her 3 entirely different readings because it was written for a guy. I didn't know, so I made it. One was kind of seductive, and one was kind of ditzy, and one was kind of normal. And I got cast.
Yeah, but remember you
Because
said
she made the decision to pull the wild card.
well, she called, the casting director has only one power. We decide who to invite into our office for whatever project it is. Then we send the tape, or we upload the tape to the internet, and the client decides who gets called back. The client decides who gets booked. My power stops. People say, oh, thank you for the job, Denise. And I say, no, I didn't give you the job. I gave you the opportunity. That's the only thing that you can thank me for.
Right.
So when Beth called you in, she knew what she was getting. She knew you. She knew the volume of your work. She knew your abilities. So, good for her for calling you in. But, you get a lot of that credit because you did your job, because you went in there and landed the job. So hooray for you.
Thank you.
Sure. But I would bet you dollars to donuts she didn't have anything to do with that final decision. Yeah, you can recommend, but rarely do they give a flying fig about what you think. So they will occasionally say, well, between Joe and Jim, what do you know about these guys? And I will tell them the truth that I know. Of course, I wouldn't have called them in if they weren't good to begin with, but I will say, well, this guy has done this, that, and the other. This guy's done this, that, and the other. I know this guy better. I don't know this guy at all, whatever. And I tell them the truth as I know it to be, but it's their decision, not mine, and particularly the director. I mean, I cast for Spike Lee. You think he hears what I think about? I don't think so.
Mike Lee calls me all the time.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah.
All 5'2" of them?
What does he call you?
Oh.
You don't want to know us all.
Yeah.
He calls him tall.
I tower over Spike.
Oh, yeah, I agree. Hey, Gary, got anything you want to chip in with?
Yeah, Tom, I took your little introduction course many years ago, and you said a couple words that blew me away. I'd like you to expand on them a little bit because of your talent. It's yes and.
Okay.
That simple concept blew me away because I got the picture.
One of the things that we would do, and this is a soft that I learned this from, is we changed yes and to not only that. Because, and Asaf, back me up on this if I'm wrong, because a lot of times we would hear yes and but. But with not only that, you're immediately agreeing to it and adding on to it. And it's about, to me, it's about honesty and acceptance and enthusiasm. You're whatever's presented before you. At Second City, we would call them, everything is a gift. We react to the gifts. And the great thing about that is everything is a gift, as long as you are grateful. So if you approach a scene or any sort of creative activity with if every opportunity as a a wonderful opportunity for either comedy or drama, or let's call it creativity. I don't want to say art. I like John Waters has a had a quote that I was too dated, but we might know, or you guys might remember. John Waters once said, "I don't like to use the word art unless I'm referring to Mr. Linkletter." Anybody remember Art Linkletter? Okay, good. I thought this might be the right.
I'm
But
old enough, I remember him.
yeah, Art Linkletter, kids say the darndest things. And yeah, see, that's a quote you can't use with the students. Let's Google it, kids. So anyway, but it's just about acceptance and appreciating and then responding. One of the things that I always start all my classes with is it's called the snap game, and we're just playing catch with the snap. And so when it comes to you catch it and then you throw it.
Is everybody still there? Can y'all hear me? Are we on?
Yes, I hear you, and this is how I feel about it. Or I accept this gift. I gladly accept this gift, and here's my gift to you. Does that make sense? Now, if you give them that gift in the truest gift form, they can take that gift and do whatever they want to it. Now, if you do that gift in a Tom Booker form, chances are you're like, all right, well, I gave you that, so you would do this. Doesn't work out. I used to, sometimes people will improvise as if they're playing chess. They'll be like, okay, I'm going to do this, so you will do that. And it's right along the lines, to me, it reminds me of when you're in a relationship with somebody and well, if you would only do this, we would be happy. And I once told that, I said, all right, if someone has said that to you, get out of the relationship. And the next week, the woman came back and she said, I broke up with my boyfriend because of you. And I'm like, good for you. Did that answer it? But the thing about improv, I think, is it's not just for the stage, it's for the work. Hi, Pearl's here. Pearl wants to say hi. Whenever Pearl enters a room, especially when we first got her, Janet would just say, everything is awesome, because that's Pearl's personality. She's just, everything's
She's
good.
upstaging you.
Yeah, good. But yeah, if you accept everything as a gift, what does this make possible? It's one of those things that you're making. Again, the word art sounds a little pretentious, but you're just accepting everything and building with everything, no matter what. Does that make sense? If you say you get diagnosed with MS, great. You know what it makes possible? You get a cool king with flames on it.
There you
I love
go.
it. That's a good one.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
you mentioned something that made me think y'all will enjoy this. I was staying home from school when I was a young kid. I was sick. Art Linkletter show was on TV. They're interviewing little Johnny, and his mom's in the audience, and she stands up and she's so proud. And then he said, well, where's your daddy? He said, well, he's stationed over in Korea right now. Oh, do you miss him, Johnny? Oh, I miss him a whole lot, But when he first went over there, I got to sleep with mommy all the time. I bet that was good. Yeah, but now Uncle Albert's over all the time sleeping with her. And I
Oh my God.
Live on TV, Art Linkletter. I swear I rolled over and Art Linkletter went, thank you, Johnny, and went to the next kid.
Kids do say the darndest things.
Boy, that was a
I love that show.
trumped everything. So I had to throw that in because you mentioned Art Linkletter.
Oh yeah.
Hey, if you folks have any questions, raise your hand. We got brother Tom here. Raise your hand and tackle his brain.
Absolutely.
Asaf, is there anything you want to add to the yes and or anything that I just spoke about?
No, I think you covered it for the most part. For me, also, there's a psychology to improv. Improv is where you kind of train your instincts and learn the difference between your better instincts and your worse instincts, because sometimes their voices sound too similar. And they definitely speak at the same volume. And so one of the things that I found with yes and was people would misunderstand what they're saying yes to. You're saying yes to the reality, and they would confuse that with what the expectation is for you and how you participate with the reality. that the improviser saying yes is different from the character saying yes. So that was another reason why we did not only that at the institution.
Can you put your email address back up one more time? It was up for such a short time, I didn't get a chance to write it down.
Oh, it's right there, ctconservatory@gmail.
It's in the chat history.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And
Thank you.
Also, Denise, if you Tom Booker at Gmail, I can get you in touch with Asaf.
Oh, okay. That'd be great. Thank you.
All right.
Kathy?
Yeah, it just occurred to me, we're talking about taping auditions, and one of the worst ones one I had most trouble with was for a commercial. I don't remember what it was, but they had no dialogue. They didn't have even a scenario. They just said something like, grandma is having the kids over for dinner, say.
Oh,
And number one, there's no one else in the room to interact with. And I thought about this because of all the yes and conversation. So much of great acting is listening and reacting, and so much of improv is too. And if improv is thinking up something and then saying it to sound funny, or pushing something out there, that's really not the beauty of improv. It does come with responding to and adding to. But if there's nothing to respond to, any suggestions for how one would tape an audition, even if there's someone else in the room to play off of? But there have been a couple of those where Lori and I didn't bother to get together because we're like, what are we going to do with that? There's no scenario. There's nothing to even get an idea what they're looking for. Or
So Kathy, did you not tape it, or did you? tape it?
one of them I'd passed and didn't do it all. She taped something herself. But I was just so frustrated because I had no earthly idea. And like I say, I don't accurately remember the details, but there was nothing there. Now, I could have sat down and made up a scenario and tried to pretend there were other people in the room when there's not other people in the room. But to me, that just sounded so fake, and it
What I
didn't
would-
inspire me. There was
what I
no
would suggest,
joy in
Kathy-
it. It would be acting from obligation instead of inspiration, as someone
Ding, Asaf.
Thank you, Asaf.
That's
Kathy-
actually, that's a Mick Napier quote. So gotta
Oh,
give credit
even-
where credit is due.
Yes, Ricochet.
Kathy, my suggestion, first of all, I love the fact that you said listening, because listening is such an important part of an actor's life, and most of them don't know how to do that. But what I would have done is I would have picked up the phone and I would have called my agent and said, I need more information. I can't do this. I want talent really want to do a good job. And the only way they can do a good job is if they have adequate information. And so I would have called, shame on the casting directors that are still getting hired, still getting paid, and giving you nothing to work with.
Yeah.
Shame on them. How do they expect you to bring in a good audition if they don't tell you who, what, where, when, why, and all that other stuff? That's absurd. So
Well, back in the old days, when we showed up in person,
yeah,
Beth or whoever they would say you, and you, and bring you into the room, and you had a representative for the father and the mother and the granny and the kids, and improvise something. I remember doing one of those for her and Steve. I can't remember the guy who taught with McConaughey at IUT. Anyway, it was for a commercial that we improvised a Thanksgiving where horrible things go wrong. Well, of course, you could tell the other 4 people in the room with me had no training in improv because not one of them was listening. They were all just screaming out their own ideas, and it was just cacophony. So I just stood there and pretended to be eating and watching them.
well, the good thing is that even if something like that happens, from what I know, each person is looked at individually. So
Mhm.
you could have really shined, and you could have been with 4 lousy people and you still came out smelling like a rose.
Yeah,
So,
I did my best to respond to what was happening in the room.
yeah. Well, the thing about it is don't think that you've lost a job just because your scene partner sucks. Because if
Good
you
point.
stand out, they will just say she needs a different scene partner.
Yeah, and it's been my experience too that if I've had something that goes like that and cast director thought I really didn't get a fair shake, they'll be like, hey, Tom, can you stick around for this
Come on
next
back.
one?
Ah,
You know,
Yeah.
because they,
Yeah.
you know, they want you to shine, because when you shine, they shine.
Bingo.
I want to agree. I agree with Donnie's. You know, don't be afraid to ask questions, because when you get called into an audition, you're there to solve a problem. And
Right.
if you need information to help them solve the problem, they will gladly give that information to you, because they want you to do a good job. Because if you do a good job, their problem is solved, so they can move on to the next problem.
And then they look good too.
Yeah, and the other thing, if and I know there wasn't any information, one of the things I would always talk about is if you're there in front of the camera, the camera operator is your scene partner. So rather than look here, I always suggest you look here in their eyes, so that then you connect. Now I know you were doing this at home, but you've been doing something with a friend, and I also would encourage you to go ahead and do it anyway, because you can do it and not send it in.
Yep.
That makes sense? If you don't like it,
true.
but at the very worst that can happen is you have fun with your friend, you know, and that's all we want to do.
Well, that's the beauty of what Lori and I are doing. Every single audition now.
Oh,
we
it sounds great.
sit and
That
have a ball.
and the percentage she gets you when she gives you when she books a gig, right?
Yeah.
Good.
Of
You're
course.
getting a piece of that action.
Honestly, though, she does.
Some friends would ask.
Since I don't get paid as a videographer, she takes me to lunch every time. So
There you go. That's more than enough.
I've been to Bartlett several times now.
But yeah, I mean, that's the victory, you know, because that we can control, you know, and then you send it off and you're like, okay, well, where's the next one? And how can because you know, one of the things, I have a list of things I wish I would have been smart enough to know when I was younger, and just focus on what you can control. And what you can control is just becoming the best at what you do.
Yeah.
You know, and you know this, Kathy, you're a NASA scientist. And I'm not kidding, right? Was it NASA?
No, I have an
IBM?
aerospace engineering degree.
It was
I
what?
work for IBM. Yeah.
IBM. I knew it.
But enough
Yeah.
about me.
She's really smart.
Tom,
Gary?
I wanted to ask you one question if I could, Tom.
Sure.
First of all, I completely admire stand-up comics. That's got to be the most naked art form ever. I mean, musicians, you start a new song, plays, you move on to the next act or line. How do you write material and how do you test it to see if it works?
Well, I think in front of an audience, and I mean, a good stand-up routine is basically a well-rehearsed one-act play that's put on in such a way that people think you're just saying it off the top of your head, you know, and that just takes it takes rehearsal, and it takes workshopping, and probably you know, a group that you're working with, a group that you trust, and that you're helping each other. But it like anything, it takes longer than you think it's going to take. But you have to be, and I think whenever I did stand up here, especially like in the late 80s when I was in Chicago, you know, I would get up and do 8 minutes of something really horrible, and then show up the next week and do the same 8 minutes. Just wasn't sure enough to go, what's not working? Everything. Good, let's do it again.
Tootie, did you have a question or comment?
Yes, my question is for Tom. Is there ever a time when improv should not be used or used too much?
What, are you talking about an audition situation or?
Auditions, even in theater.
It depends on the situation. Now, usually they will give you permission. There'll be code words like in. I remember back in LA for SAG auditions, they would, you know, they wouldn't say the I word, is what they called it, but they would say, "Feel free to make it your own," or It didn't happen much in Austin, but in especially commercial auditions. In commercial auditions, there would be a board. So there would be, you know, poster board or something right by the camera with the copy on it. And another phrase they would use is feel free to go off the board. And I auditioned for Christopher Guest a couple times. Now, I never got cast, but rumor has it, I don't know if this is true, but rumor has it that he would fast forward. It was when things were still on VHS tape. He would fast forward through the tape, and if he saw anybody's eyes go boop towards the board, you were out. So I think I think in theater, it's probably depending on the piece. If the playwright's there, you know, it's theater is such a writer's medium usually, and you might want to try and stick to the script. You should probably always know the script because it will inform your perception of the character, and that way you have the script to always go to. But I think it would come down to just reading the room. If you feel like it's a place that that you can improvise. Another thing, a lot of times, a lot of auditions, and I hope they still do this, is they will get what they want, and then we'll say, okay, let's just do one your way, you know. And I've had this happen on set. I've had this, you know, happen in auditions, and if it doesn't work, they just don't use it, you know. So I would, if I were going to do an audition, I would ask the casting director, and the casting director is usually going to tell, you know, feel free to make it your own, and the same with like if you were auditioning for a play, I would give them the read they want, you know, and then say, hey, do you mind if I play a little bit?
There you go.
And yeah, don't be afraid to ask questions. And then when, like, in callbacks, when the director's in there, usually after your first take, usually they do a take and you do it your way because they want to see what you're bringing to the table because it might inspire them. And then whether you need it or not, they will give you some direction and you'll do another take. And my advice is always, once you do that, turn to the director and just ask, is that what you had in mind or is that what you were looking for? Because from their brain to their mouth to your ears to your brain, there's a lot of room for misinterpretation. And again, they want you to solve their problem. Yeah, you know, it's not cliche that they want you to get the role. That it's true. They don't, and it's not because, oh, you're a wonderful person, we want you to get the roles. Like, we want you to get the role so we can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not as cynical as that, but that's true. So always ask, once you get direction, don't be afraid to ask questions. Get direction, ask if that's what they had in mind, because their instructions might not have been what they thought they were saying. Does that make sense? And what's really neat is then you see them get real excited, you know, because like, oh, let's try this, you know, and again, and once you have an audition, my motto is leave it at the door. You know, auditioning is a sales call. That's what you're doing. You're showing up, and most of this crowd might remember Mr. Haney from Green Acres. I always feel like in an audition, I'm Mr. Haney at Green Acres. For those of you who don't know, there was a show called Green Acres. It was about a New York couple that moves to outside of Petticoat Junction, Green Acres, it's farm. And there was a guy who used to have a horse-drawn wagon with all pots and pans, and he was Mr. Haney. And I always feel like when I have an audition, or when I audition, I'm Mr. Haney showing up. I show them my wares. Sometimes they want them. Sometimes they don't need this frying pan that is Tom Booker. And you just leave it at the door. You know, it's a sales call. And if you don't get it, it has nothing to do with whether you're good or bad. There's no good or bad. You know, because it's totally subjective. Subjective, objective.
You could not be more right.
Yeah.
Leave it at the door. Ask the director, do you want to see something else? And when you ask the director, do you want to see something else? You better have something else. Can't do the same thing. Kimberly, did you have any comments or questions?
I am just soaking this all in. I'm getting back into acting after many, many years. So I'm just soaking it all in right now.
Well, good. Thank you very much. I hope this has been enjoyable for you.
Yes.
Chris, what about you?
Well, since can you hear me? Because
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. I recently started back on stage, stand up. So the little things I heard here really kind of perked my ears up
Good.
about stand up. And I studied at the Groundlings a little bit in LA,
Oh,
and the stuff that the whole yes and thing, it was very prominent. And the first thing they said to me when I got accepted, they said, "Hey, comedians struggle with this because comedians naturally disagree a lot of the time," and they were so right.
yeah, I found that the two types of people that have a trouble with improv, and it's nothing wrong with, but stand-ups because they're used to working alone, and writers because they're used to seeing the whole scene.
Yeah, and that was the way I approached my stand-up, which I don't anymore. I used to write everything down word for word, which made it easier for me for acting because I basically scripted everything and taught myself how to learn or memorize. But that is not the way things go today for me. But yeah, there were some things in there that really made a lot of sense to me, and yeah, I'm glad I was able to find this and tune in.
Great.
Chris, one thing that I want to commend you for is Chris made a conscious effort to find his process. You know, as we go through, and we'll choose someone else's process, like, oh, this is how they do it. But one thing that I encourage my students to do is take note what works for them.
Right.
Yes, that's actually a piece of advice that I got from a successful road comic back in the day that came through an improv, the chain. And I was one of the newer comics, so I got to hang out in the green room and talk to whoever came into town that week. And one of them said, you know, the best advice I ever got was to learn how to take advice. You know? So there's some advice, you know, what works for them may not work for you. So you just kind of make your own Jeet Kune Do of performing and writing or whatever. It's like somebody might have something that works for you. You take that. This one may not work for you. So you just kind of, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I'll you know, take everything you said into, you know, whatever you want to say in those moments. But I had to learn how to pick and choose things, try them out and figure out what worked for me. And that was probably one of the biggest changes in my process, was learning how to pick and choose things to kind of develop.
Well, thank you so much. I'm glad you found us tonight. You're always welcome to come back. Donald, did you have anything that you wanted to ask or add?
I wanted to ask a question about improving in the middle of a performance, where say for instance, if it's a play, and somebody forgets their lines, or say I forget my line. How far would you say is acceptable to take improvisation in that instance?
All right. First, I want to point out, damn, Donald, that's a great mustache.
Oh, thank you.
That looks good.
Thank you.
And I think it's one of those things, Donald, that the audience doesn't know that you made a mistake until you let them know.
Oh, May. Oh, yeah.
You know?
Right.
So it's one of those things, if you and it's hard because I've been there, we're like, okay, what's the next line? What's the next line? What's the next line? What's the next line? And to me, I like to say, get out of your head and get into your heart. And I focus on concentrating on the emotion, and it gets me in the moment. And then no matter what, if I'm in the emotion of the moment, whatever response I have will usually be appropriate. And if I'm in the moment, and also listening, and by listening, I mean focusing on the other player or players. Does that make sense? So
it does, but what if the other player is looking for their cue, maybe the last word or something, and it totally throws them off, and what their next line is comes in totally out of context?
Well, remember what I said earlier about gifts?
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in plays, and it was wonderful. Of course, it was a stage version of Valley of the Dolls, and so we camped it up, and one night, just the flat started to the front of the flat started coming down. So we had people performing, holding their hands
Oh,
against the wall,
God.
and the audience was, but it was the atmosphere where that was kind of welcome. And I remember my teacher Del Close talking about how after a run of a play, he loved when somebody screwed up because it broke the monotony. And I don't, Donald. I think, and it's not that I don't. It isn't because I don't think I have an answer for you, but I think you're worrying about a problem that will only appear if you worry about it. Does that make sense? I think
That makes
rather than what if, I would ask myself, what can I do in case?
Yeah.
And what you can do is over prepare. I would do this film class at the institution, and the whole premise was we were going to get rid of fear through organization. And so know your lines, rehearse. I'm taking I've got an accordion teacher here, because ladies love a man that plays the accordion, am I right? And
They do?
and,
Damn, that's a first.
Okay.
and I talked to him about because I would be really good. There used to be there was a movie in the 90s called The Mystery Men, and there was a character named the Invisible Boy who was invisible if nobody was looking. And that to me was how I played the accordion. I was really good if no one was here. And so I explained this to my teacher and how I should be forgiven for my mistakes because this is just my process. And he said, I did the same thing to my teacher, and he just pointed out that I just really wasn't prepared on the piece.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're right about, Donald, one thing I want to add to what Tom has said is you need to know the script. You need to know everybody else's part and your part, so that if there is a scene partner that misses a line, you can say, hey, how about that cup of coffee you were going to offer me? Because he forgot to say, would you like a cup of coffee? So if you know the script inside out, upside down, and backwards, you can frequently help that actor recover or yourself recover. Thank you for that. Victoria, did you have something you wanted to ask or add? No?
Not really, but thank you. Thank you for all this information.
Thanks.
I'm just getting back into it myself. So, Donnie, you were wonderful. I took your class and I loved it. So informational. And so this is great. So thank you.
Thank you. I see you got out of your car.
Yeah. My dad had surgery. So it's just
Welcome back to land.
right.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Come back in the future.
Of
And,
course.
Denise, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to, Donald, I want to tell you one more thing quick. I know we're running
please.
late. Donald, what Donnie said is right on. Study the script, know everybody is, and make it fun. It's really easy to go, oh, I have to do this. No, change it to I get to do this. Find the fun in it because you're going to be doing it anyway. So you might as well make it fun. Does that make sense? Kathy, I see.
Amber, any parting words from Amber?
I wanted to say that I watched a Chicago teacher talk about self-taping, and he says actors now have to also be directors and cinematographers. You
Right.
must know your frame, you must know your light, you must know how you sound. The other thing I want to say, as an acting coach, we do yes and in our work with realizations and decisions. I realize you're doing this to me, so I decided to do this to you. So improv is just kind of the foundation of everything, if you ask me. You must know how to yes and always.
It's connection.
Yeah,
It's connection and
absolutely.
with an emotional response.
With emotion, yes.
Yeah.
We just have to honor the script. And Donald, yes, you must save your scene partner. If they forget, it's absolutely imperative you get them back on track. So you got to know your script. And if you forget, then you just have to hope somebody saves you. It's the job of your scene partners to save each other.
That's absolutely right. Gary, want to wrap this up? And before you do, I just want to say, Tom, thank you. This has been a brilliant evening. I've thoroughly enjoyed listening to you and learning from you. Gary, take it away.
Thank you, Donise. Thank you, Tom. And I wanted to say something that became very apparent during hearing you talking. Your attitude. You're always talking about be here now. You're talking about making the best of things. You're talking about seeing the light. And that's where I think your beauty, your charm, your smile, and your talent come from, because that's the bottom line greatness of being a creative human being is how
Well,
you
let's
look-
not play up that beauty part too much. He's gonna
Okay,
get a
we'll get
real,
that word
he's
out.
gonna get a real damn big head. No, I take that back, Tom. You're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. It's so good to see all of you all. It's been nice. It's been wonderful evening.
It's
Thank
an
you
honor
so
to have
much.
you, brother.
Good luck in Nashville. Show them what life is really like.
Oh yeah, we're gonna make Nashville weird.
Yay.
Do what we can. All right,
All
I
right.
love you all. Everybody keep creating.
Thank
Good
you,
night,
brother.
everybody. Thank you for joining us.
Bye, gang.